So first, what do you teach?
I teach personal finance, entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and then business foundations. And the last three I just stated are actually DECA courses. Personal finance is available to anyone at Northmont High School.
Okay. And then for your, the finance part of your classes,
Mm-hmm.
uh, do you feel like you make a difference when you're helping students learn how to do those things? Do they take it seriously when you teach those subjects?
Yeah, I do think that a lot of my upperclassmen, so that class is mixed, 9 through 12.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good for anyone to take, but I think that my upperclassmen take it a little bit more seriously than my freshmen because my freshmen, most of them don't have a job yet. So, their parents are paying for most things, or maybe some of them are paying for things, but majority of it is the junior, senior, upper level take it a little bit more seriously because I think they realize more they're paying for things, especially seniors. They are, getting ready to go into the real world, whether it be college or the workforce. They it's a little bit more realistic for them
Yeah.
in the short term per se. So I think all in all, kids take it pretty seriously.
So do you feel like a lot of them that are taking that class are taking it more seriously because they're really trying to prepare themselves to get out of school? Like they feel like they have to take a class to actually realize how life's going to be once they get out of high school type
Yeah,
of deal?
and just like any other class, I mean, there's definitely some kids that don't take it as seriously. But yeah, I do think a lot of them take it seriously. I've had kids come back and say, "Hey, we talked about interview skills and it helped me with this interview." But I've also had kids come back and say, "I wish I would have paid attention to that a little bit more because now I'm hitting that point to where I'm getting ready to get a job,
Yeah.
or my parents want me to pay for a car or insurance and stuff." So I've had both. I've had students come back and tell me this is really beneficial. I'm so glad that I took the class. And then I've had kids come back and say, I wish I would have paid attention a little bit more.
Okay.
So it just depends on the kid, I think.
Okay. And then do you have any students that lack motivation? And then what do you really do to help push them forward and keep them going in your class if they're ever struggling?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely kids that I guess you would say slack off or aren't, turning things in. And I like to stay flexible because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have stuff going on in my life and I know that they
Yeah.
have stuff going on in theirs. So I try and stay like, yeah, there's a due date, but I mean, every kid is different. So if it because you know, you've got stuff going on or whatever. And most likely most of the time I tell them, if you turn in something late, like let me know.
Yeah.
And I have done special circumstances as far as like, what things are going on in their life.
Yeah.
If I've talked to
Oh,
the
that's good
guidance
then.
counselor, or I mean, I have a couple of kids right now that I've missed a lot. So it's like, okay, well, these are, I think, what is most important for you to get out of this. So let's go ahead and forget about some of this. Let's
Do you
focus
think
on
it
this
helps
assignment.
take that stress off them to be able to be more lenient like that?
Yeah, I don't ever want my classes to be like something that kids stress out about.
Yeah.
I try and give them, a decent amount of time to complete things in class. And, some people probably disagree with this, but I don't give them homework. Like, it's an elective course, not to say that it shouldn't be taken seriously, but
Yeah.
I don't want it to be something where it's, like a pass fail situation where like someone can't graduate. Like the classes it's supposed to be set up to be real life in a sense, but in real life you have to work with things too. So
Yeah.
I know both ends of it, like being a stickler and not being a stickler, but life happens, things happen, and you just kind of have to
Yeah.
work with them.
As
So,
it comes. Yep.
yeah.
And then, what do you do in your class to prepare kids for college after school?
Um, which class? Personal finance or just any of them?
Any of them?
Well, as far as like my DECA courses go, and I don't know if you know much about DECA, but
Yeah.
they compete in front of judges who are professionals in the field. So, how to interview, how to act professionally, how to present things professionally, I think helps whether they go into the workforce right away or if they go to college. And not necessarily just in business either. There's plenty of kids in our program that go into the medical field, but a lot of times you have meetings, you have you know, things you have to deal with and present in those fields too. So a lot of that is gone on through DECA. And then with personal finance, I do think that that also helps. We touch with personal finance a little bit in DECA too, making sure that those kids know how to deal with their finances. But strictly with the personal finance class, I do think that regardless of what you're going into, if college is your thing, if personal or the workforce is your thing, we talk about, you know, we do some career exploration, interviewing skills, budgeting. We just started talking about or wrapped up talking about credit scores and what that is and how that affects your life.
So is there students that you like, any students you know of that already have said or anything that they're probably going to have to go to college, to the workforce right after high school because of where they are? And then if so, then what things do you guys do? So you guys, I know you've said you've done interview, practice, and other things to do to help them get into the workforce after school.
Okay, so you're asking me, like, if they are going to the workforce, what do we do in class that helps that student, not just the college-bound student?
Yep.
So I mentioned the job interview skills. I start off the semester talking about savings accounts and budgeting.
Okay.
They do an assignment. I give them a low-income job because some come from low-income families, so they may already have an idea of how to budget, but those that don't, I think it gives people a reality check too, like, wow, it gives them a reality check regardless, because I make them go grocery shopping, how much you spend on food, electric, heat, all of this stuff, all while trying to save a little bit of money. So I think that component right there is huge.
And really makes them realize it too.
Yeah, exactly. And also it makes them, I think some of them a little bit more motivated to get through high school, at least, because I know that for some people is a huge, I guess, accomplishment or a huge task to have to complete because of certain things that go on in their lives or whatever, to try and get them to at least get that high school diploma. That way they can go into the workforce and then maybe work their way up from there. Yeah. So, showing how to budget, that's what I start off with every time is, okay, savings is important. How can you budget, manage living day to day and also saving at the same time? So. And
then, so do you think right now in our schools that we have enough classes to help teaching, especially the working class, lower class families, to help teach them to learn about more real life scenarios and to better prepare them for going into job work and then on to college, or however their situation is?
You mean just for Northmont, or like
just schools state? In general?
No, I don't. I think it's awesome that Northmont offers personal finance. Yes. Yeah, the state requires some sort of financial literacy, but it's not stated specifically enough as far as like how schools can do it. So for instance, here you get a little bit of it through your history course, and I'm not sure which one it is, but government. Okay, so I doubt they spend the amount of time that would be sufficient. And it's not their fault. It's not the teacher's fault whatsoever. No. They have all this other curriculum they have to go through that's tested and all of that. So, how we require it, I think, needs to be reevaluated. I've had several people come to me and say, like, why isn't that required for everyone? And I would love for it to be required for everyone, because I think it's beneficial. And that's what I'm trying to argue too, is that it's not required for everybody, so a lot of people don't know about this. Yeah. And then they don't know how helpful something like this could have been. And beyond that point, you talk about lower class families. A lot of lower class, they don't, and it's not really their fault either, like, don't have time to talk to their kids about certain things, or maybe they lack some education in it too themselves. They don't feel comfortable talking about it. So if they get it here, then it's better something you could bring home for them to move on with, and then maybe even be better than what they grew up with. So and that's the main goal, and that's something I like to talk about, because I read a book called Class Matters, and it talks about how far out of reach getting out of different classes has become. So if you
most likely, if your parents were lower class, then you're going to be lower class. It's more likely that you're going to stay in your class that your family's in
Because
than
it's
it's
harder
ever
to get
been.
out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then, do you believe that those students have a harder time at school because of the things they lack compared to someone that can maybe afford a tutor or afford the help instead of a lower class that can't afford the help, or like you said, maybe a parent doesn't have the education because they didn't do so well in school or something? So do you believe that they have a harder time getting through school?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Do you think they're ashamed to maybe ask questions sometimes because they feel like maybe it's a stupid
I mean,
question?
not necessarily asking questions. I think that maybe they might feel uncomfortable sharing, like, you know, what is going on at home or how they've been brought up, just because, you know, if, society wise, like, if you don't
Yeah.
have all this, then, you know, you're poor, you're always gonna be poor, whatever that status quo is. But, yeah, I do think that it is harder because more than likely, if you're coming from a poverty stricken household or someone that is, you know, needing paycheck to paycheck, and not to say that upper class or people with money don't have problems either.
Yeah,
Like, there's
yeah.
plenty of problems
Yes.
to be said there.
Yep.
But I do think that a lot of times it comes with, you know, mom and dad, or maybe just mom, or maybe just dad is always at work so that they can support the family. And if they have siblings, they're probably at home at high school level. They're probably taking care of their siblings. And that's an adult type of, you know, responsibility that I don't necessarily, we think that shouldn't be placed upon high school students, but there's plenty of kids in this school that have to do that. So yeah, I do think it's harder, and you have to have, I mean, things require money, like tutoring and things along those lines. So yeah, I do think
Yeah.
that if you don't have the means of doing it, then you can't do it.
Exactly. And then, so the last question would be, how come you decided to become in this profession and teach what you teach?
Okay. So I
And I
in
might
high
have
school.
one more actually.
That's okay. So I am from Lima, and I was raised by a single mom. And so in regards to like that lower class kind of feeling, I didn't have the worst life in the world by any means. My mom definitely, like, you know, made sure I had things, and I went to college and she helped me with it, and she had a decent job. But I went to school at a poverty-stricken school, an inner city school, and I was friends with those kids. I saw their struggles, and I may not have been like exactly in their position, but I can kind of relate in some aspects
Yeah.
as that goes. But why I decided to become a teacher is I had a really awesome DECA and marketing teacher in high school that I still talk to this day, and we're still pretty close. And you know, I got really ingrained in what DECA was about, and I learned so much in that class that I felt like that's what I wanted to do. And I like helping kids. I like the high school age. I like being able to talk to them about this stuff and it's relevant. Yeah, so I just had an awesome teacher, and I was interested in this stuff, and I'm still interested in it. And I hope that I affect someone somehow, you know, in what I teach and what I do. So, and actually originally I went in to just be a business student when I went to Bowling Green, but then I really thought about it. I was like, I kind of want to teach it. And some say, like, you were never technically in business to teach it, but I mean, you can still do that.
Yeah.
I still know what's going on and stuff. So
I'm going to start off by asking you, do you think the classes that we have right now, the ones that are required by the state, not the ones that we have here at Northmont, are enough for those students to learn the skills they need to go into the workforce right after school, or to have a better understanding of what life is on their own once they fall out of high school, because they're probably most likely going to have to fall right into a job?
No, I don't think they're required. The so-called 4 courses, the English, the math, the science, the government.
And then as well as financial literacy
Well,
they require.
that
some
yeah,
concern
that I
about.
do think is required, but I guess we'll go there in a minute. Those four that they always, the four core that you
Uh-huh.
take. I don't think that that's enough for students to leave high school and be successful. The classes that I think a student should have to take to be successful would be financial literacy, would be family and consumer science classes that Mrs. Dines teaches, teaching you how to cook, teaching you how to do relationships. Classes like marketing and business that are going to teach you how to talk to people, interview skills, how to do your taxes, how to write a check. I think those are the things that people need to take here. So I think the standard high school doesn't allow you as a student to go strictly from the high school into the workforce. I do think, kind of just off topic, just a hair, I do think the courses like at Miami Valley CTC, that allows students to, I think personally, go from high school right into the workforce.
Yeah.
And so I think
agree
that
with
the
that.
career technical education is what kids need more so than those four core that the government or the state says that kids need.
Okay.
If that answers that kind of the question there.
Yeah, it does actually, really good. Next is, do you have any students in your class that aren't as motivated at sometimes, and then what do you do differently to help motivate them and keep them going onto the right path? Maybe it's solving a problem in your DECA or something like that.
I would say being in a marketing course, the motivation's always a little bit different, depending upon where we're at in the year. I think DECA helps us motivate students. So right now, the students who have qualified for the state conference are going there in a couple weeks. Their motivation is to try to get to our national conference in Orlando. Now, the students who didn't make it past districts, I guess you got to still get them involved in class, so they're going to be motivated differently to still want to come. But I think DECA is like just that. It's a motivator in itself, just so you can try to get to that state and national conference. The class itself, I guess, to motivate you, would just trying to make it things worthwhile learning, kind of what you've already talked about, of having those skills, worthwhile skills to take with you, not just talking about professional selling, but how can you use skills in professional selling regardless if you're going into sales or not. So that's speaking skills and the confidence in those things.
Okay. And so, what are some things that you teach in your classes that you think helps better prepare students to get out of high school, and which ways does it help prepare them?
Two big things that I think I like students to take out of here is, one is interviewing skills and communication skills.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter if you're going into marketing or not, because that's what I teach, but if you can go and talk to an individual and interview with them, you're going to get the job. Sometimes it's not, even if you don't know as much as somebody else, but you're able to sell yourself when they're interviewing you, you're going to get the job over the person who may know more than you but can't talk or don't have the confidence.
Yeah.
So when kids leave, regardless if whatever they've done, I want them to be able to go sit down and interview for the job, the internship, the co-op, whatever it is. I want them to be able to leave and have that confidence. And that's really
That's
the
awesome.
biggest thing. That's the biggest thing I like kids to take. I don't care if you learn the 4 Ps of marketing or if you learn distribution systems. If you can leave here and interview and talk to somebody and have confidence, that's the key that's important.
Awesome. So then, what opportunities in your classes are provided, or like directions, like maybe scholarships or other thing like that, that helps prepare students to get a better idea of how they're going to pay for college or get into college?
Scholarship, first thing I guess is what we talk about. Students who finish the program, marketing program, are guaranteed a $3,000 scholarship at Sinclair.
That's awesome.
So every student who comes through my class has that Sinclair fallback, and it's good for 2 years. So essentially that's going to pay for 2 full years of school at Sinclair. So if you're struggling a little bit, you're leaving with that scholarship. DECA has some scholarships nationally that kids can apply for and whatnot. So I guess that's truly what helps kids out. Now I'd say 85% of the kids that I have are pretty high flyers, and they're going to those 4-year schools, but that Sinclair scholarship is there for who anyone does it, which I think is a huge benefit to students.
Yeah. And so do you see a lot of people take that opportunity seriously?
I'll tell you, yes, I'm
Are they thankful? Like, do
no.
they show express?
Yes, I think there's a couple things that have to. One, there's certain kids who know that they're going to take full advantage of that. So when we apply for it, they're asking questions about it and things. Now, there's also some kids who don't think they're going to take advantage of that, and then they go off to school and kind of what you're talking about. They see their first bill that they had. I had a couple years ago. I had a girl go to Kent State. She got her first bill from Kent State and realized she couldn't afford it. So she went back to St. Clair because that scholarship is sitting there for you, and it's sitting there for 2 years. So if you go off to Ohio State, you don't like it, something happens, you fall back. That scholarship's there for 2 years. So more kids are taking advantage of it now than what it used to be. So we really try to sell it. It's no cost to them to get that either. It's just it's automatic.
And do you think the students that need to know actually know that scholarship's there?
Yeah, I do a really good job about at the beginning of the junior year. I do a very good job at talking to all the juniors and the seniors. I make sure they know about it and they know that it's a fallback. And as the year progresses, I always bring it up here or there, just kind of talk about the positive things of that St. Clair class, because I also like to tell students to go down to the branch here in Inglewood, so you can live at home and still go to and from the branch and use it at the Inglewood branch.
Okay, so then growing up in high school, did you feel like your family status, did you think it helped or was a drawback? And do you feel like you faced challenges going through high school and into college growing up or not?
Yes, I mean, I would certainly say I think what sets students, what gets a disadvantage for students is when you start filling off that FAFSA stuff, it's not based upon what you can pay, it's based upon what they say your parents can pay. Even though your parents probably not paying for college, I think that's a significant downside to that, so that was a challenge I had. I mean, I have just in undergrad and grad, I probably have I owe close to 50 or 60,000. So I'll always show students in my class my student loan so they see it, and if they can learn from my mistake, I want them to learn from my mistake, and so you can see that. So I would say my parents helped where they could, but it certainly was taking out my own private loans to pay for what else I could. So learning from that, and I try to teach students to learn from my mistake, that you don't over borrow because you think you need it, or exactly what you need, or maybe just a hair less, and then work through college to help pay that other amount off. Because it's the interest is what kills you.
Yeah. So talking about that, do you feel like you make a difference in those students that really need it, or in the students who are struggling with school? Do you feel like you ingrain a difference into them that make them like a light bulb pop or something?
Well, I would like to say yes, that I do, and I think I would like to think that when students leave the classroom, they either have a better understanding of what they want to do in, I guess I'm going to say, the real world after high school. So or what career they want to go into. Sometimes my difference is they decide they're going to go into a business or marketing career field because of the experience here. Sometimes that doesn't change them, but I still think they leave, I'd like to think that they leave better prepared for college and the real world after the class than they came in before the class. I mean, I would like to think that.
Yeah. So do your students typically stay motivated towards their goal? And then if not, what do you do to help them?
Again, I guess it depends. It depends upon the time of the year, I think, almost. A lot of times, if I see some unmotivation throughout the year, I'm big on just not, like, there's certain teachers who are lecture.
Yep.
If I see that we're unmotivated for a day, like a random Tuesday, sometimes I'll just say, okay, you need to do what you need to do today. So like a lot of times senior year, if I know everyone's stressed because of an English project's coming up, I'll take a step back in my class and say, focus on this. I used to always give seniors a day here and there to focus on, like, when scholarships come due. I won't do any teaching. I'll let them use the class period to do their scholarship stuff.
Yeah,
so that way it stays motivated to come in here, that we're not strictly academics in here. Sometimes there is some of that other things that we can do.
Yeah. So then what encouraged you to become a teacher, and what you're teaching?
I guess my experience of, or why I became a teacher, is because I was in DECA in high school, and I loved my high school marketing and DECA experience, and I really liked my teacher. I'm still very close with him, so I decided that I wanted to do that. I loved my experience in high school in marketing in DECA, so I wanted to then continue that and give back, I guess, to people as they gave back to me, and I knew I wouldn't have the confidence, have the speaking skills that I have now if it wasn't for my high school experience. So it was a way for me to give back to other students, so hopefully they could have the same experience that I did.
And did you happen to have the same teacher as
No, she had.
Oh, because she gave she began her sentence the same exact way as you did.
Where she was at, we're in the same district, but different teacher. I would say one of the things that if you talked to, I think you talked to a lot of marketing people that took marketing in high school. I bet you'd see a lot of similar answers with some things, because there's just I think as a marketing teacher, DEC advisor, we just have a different personality and outlook on things compared to like a science or an English or math teacher. And so that's probably why. But that's interesting that she said that. But it was a completely different teacher. I know her teacher, the teacher she had, I'm really good friends with Mrs. Hood, who she probably talked about, or Mrs. Provost at the time. So good friends with her. So we're just all like a different personality, and we're all very similar. Where we understand that I don't want you to have to write 12 pages. I'm not going to force you to do it. I'm not going to be high academics with you. No, my standards are high, but as long as you get to my standard, I'm not going to, like when you go into science and they expect you to do this, or in your English they're expecting you to do this. Yeah, I expect you to do these things, but we can get to the end a different way than what you're doing in some of your other classes.
All right, that's all.